Hey folks, every year I read the Declaration of Independence to our family, and I thought I would do it for you all while the crackers and fireworks are going off in the background. It's a great document. It applies to us all, and I I've been stressed about the last 6 weeks or whatever, everything going on in our country. I thought I'd read this document because it applies to black, brown, white, yellow, everybody, all races, all religions, everybody. We're Americans, and it's a great thing. So we should love each other, embrace each other. And I'm going to read one of the founding documents of our country to you and give my feeble explanation where the Spirit moves me. So here we go. In Congress, July 4th, 1776, the unanimous declaration of the 13 United States of America. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. So we were controlled by the British colonies at the time, and they said, hey, it's time for us to dissolve from Great Britain. All the bands, the legal bands which have connected us with Great Britain, and to take on the natural freedom which is due to us. And that's what they're saying there in the first paragraph. And they say we hold these truths to be self-evident. Anybody knows these things, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator, God Almighty, the Lord Jesus Christ, with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That applies to all of us who live in this country. No matter if you're rich, poor, young, old, black, white, Hispanic, whatever, we have certain unalienable rights, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their powers from the consent of the governed. So we put governments in place to ensure that we have life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And the government's power comes from us, the people. That when any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, so the government's not living up to its responsibilities, to its obligations to ensure life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it and to institute a new government. So get rid of the old, in with the new, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to effect their safety and happiness. So we need to build a government that's more likely to ensure our safety and happiness. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. So you don't just get rid of a government willy-nilly for no reason. And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms of which they are accustomed. So it's saying there that people are more willing to just suck it up and gut it out and just take it on the chin while government abuses them than to abolish their governments. It says here, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations, pursuing invariably the same object. So they're abusing the people, they're taking away their rights, evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. It is their right, it's their duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. Such has been the patient sufferance of these colonies. So we've been taking it on the chin from Great Britain. We've been trying to be patient with them. We've reached out to them, as we'll see later in this document, but we've had it. And so we're done with them. And such is now the necessity which constrains them to alter their former systems of government. So, like I said, we're done. We've been patiently waiting, but now we've got to alter our relationship with the government of Great Britain. The history of the present King of Great Britain is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny of these United States. Do you want to be free, or do you want to be under tyranny? All the men and women all along these many hundreds of years that have died for our country, that have fought for our country, that have fought for our freedoms of all races and religions, thank you so much, because you have kept us from tyranny. And that is what we need to do. We need to remain free of tyranny. And then the authors go on to say, to prove this, to prove what we're saying about this tyrannical government, let the facts be submitted to a candid world. So they're going to list you the grievances here that they had against Great Britain, where Great Britain was holding us under tyranny. And remember, back at the beginning here, they were saying that that we're going to declare the causes which impel us or make us desire to have this separation. So now they're about to go on and list the reasons. They're declaring the reasons for the desire to be separated. So here we go. He has refused his assent to laws, the most wholesome and necessary for the public good. He won't even assent to reasonable laws. He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance. We need these laws to protect us, they're saying, unless suspended in their operation till his assent should be obtained. So you can pass laws. It's just that me, way across the ocean, I may or may not get around to authorizing them any certain period of time. And when so suspended, he is utterly neglected to attend to them. He's blowing off our reasonable laws. He has refused to pass other laws for the accommodation of large districts of people, unless these people would relinquish their right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only. So he says, yeah, I'll pass laws for you, but you've got to give up your rights of representation in government. He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distance from the depository of their public records, for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures. So he says, oh, hey, we're going to have a meeting that's way out in the country, and y'all won't be able to get to it. But we're going to have an official meeting. Whoever shows up, shows up. If it's a pain for you, oh, well, we called the meeting. He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people. So the houses of representatives pushed back on him and said, hey, King, you're infringing upon our rights. We don't like your laws. And so he says, okay, well, you're gonna mouth off to me. You're gonna lip off to me. Guess what? You don't exist anymore. No representation. He has refused for a long time after such dissolutions to cause others to be elected. So I'm not going to give you any representation. I'm going to dissolve your House of Representatives and not put anybody in its place, whereby the legislative powers incapable of annihilation have returned to the people at large for their exercise. So these powers of self-government, they can't be dissolved. So they were in the absence of a legislative power, they return to the people. The state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasion from without and convulsions of within. So the dissolution of these House of Representatives has resulted in chaos in the society. He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states. So he's prohibited us populating more states, and increasing the population of America. For that purpose, obstructing the laws for naturalization of foreigners, that means becoming American citizens, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, so promoting immigration and migration across the country, and raising the conditions of new appropriation of lands. So you want to acquire more land, you got to pay us more, or you got to jump through more hoops. He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers. He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. So, I declare you a judge, but only if you pay me, for example. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out of their substance. So he sends all these English emissaries to come eat our food that we've bought and grown and worked hard for. We have to pay for them and feed them. He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. So he keeps the British occupying army with us, hanging out on street corners. You walk down the street, there's a British soldier without the consent of the people. That's not government by the people. He is affected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. Oh, so the military now runs the country. The military is above the politicians, not the politicians above the military. So whatever the military decides is right, that's what they do, a military state. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. He's subjected us to puppet governments that go against our Constitution, for quartering large bodies of armed troops among us. He's keeping the military right in our midst, even in our homes, for protecting them, meaning the military, by a mock trial, a trial that really is just a circus, from punishment for any murders which they should commit on the inhabitants of these states. So the military can just come in and shoot people, and they get a kangaroo court trial, and they're protected from murdering us, for cutting off our trade with all parts of the world, for imposing taxes on us without our consent, for depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury. Hey, you're just guilty. We're not going to give you a trial. You're done. For transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses. Oh, you created an offense in Arkansas, where I live? Guess what? We're going to send you to Great Britain for trial. For abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render it at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule in these colonies. Once again, puppet government, make-believe government. For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our governments. For suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever. So we're getting ruled by this foreign power in all cases from across the sea. He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us. Not only is he a tyrant, but he's not protecting us. In fact, he's waging war against us. He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people. How do you like that? You want to live under that? No. We're a free people. We need to fight for it. And we need to hold up those who do fight for it. He is at this time, right now, they say, transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with circumstances of cruelty and perfidy scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages, and totally unworthy of the head of a civilized nation. He shouldn't be doing this to us. He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country. So he's stolen people, he's taken them captive, and he says, you're going to fight against your countrymen, to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their own hands. Hey, if you don't kill your family, if you don't kill your friends, we're going to kill you. He has excited domestic insurrections among us. So he's trying to pit us against each other, like what's happening today, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. So he wants terrorism. And of course, these are not, the Native Americans of today, but long ago, it was a different deal. We can't hardly put ourselves back in that time where it was a murderous, barbarous time. He has excited in every stage of these oppressions. We have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. So we've told him about our complaints. We said, look, we need to fix this. But what's happened? Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. So we complain, we say we're getting messed over, and what's he do? He puts us more under his thumb. He makes it worse for us. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be the ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We've warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislature to extend an unwarrantable jurisdiction over us. We've talked to them. We've reminded them of the circumstances of our emigration and settlement here. Look, we wanted to be free. We wanted to be free from Great Britain. We've reminded them. We've appealed to their native justice and magnanimity, and we have conjured them by the ties of our common kindred to disavow these usurpations, which would inevitably interrupt our connections and correspondence. Having this tyranny upon us, having this yoke upon us, look, that is inevitably going to diminish our relations with our brethren in Great Britain. And thank God Almighty that those relationships have been restored in Great Britain as a great ally of ours. They too have been deaf to the voice of justice and of consanguinity, or it might be guinity, I don't know. our brotherhood. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which denounces our separation and hold them, as we hold the rest of mankind, enemies in war, in peace, friends. So, look, we want to be your friends. We want to be the friends of all nations. But if you're going to mess with us, we're going to be your enemy. We, therefore, the representatives of the United States of America, in General Congress assembled, appealing to the Supreme Judge of the world for the rectitude of our intentions, do in the name and by authority of the good people of these colonies solemnly publish and declare that these united colonies are, and of right, ought to be free and independent states, that they are absolved from all allegiance to the British Crown, and that all political connection between them and the state of Great Britain is and ought to be totally dissolved, and that as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things which independent states may of right do. And for the support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. And there we have the various signatories of the Declaration of Independence. So that's the Declaration of Independence. You may or may not have ever read it or ever heard it read or explained in my very feeble way, but we're all Americans, whether you believe in God or don't believe in God, whether you are a Jew, a Muslim, a Buddhist, a Christian, an atheist, or whatever. We're Americans. Black, white, Hispanic, Asian, uh, Native American, wherever you come from. We're Americans. We should love each other. We should embrace each other. We have obviously flaws, things that we need to improve upon. We are by no means perfect, but we are free to love each other. We shouldn't hate each other. We should work hard to resolve our differences. That's what these people gave us. They didn't expect us to be perfect. They weren't perfect. As we know, many of them had serious flaws. But they recognized the God-given right that we have to be a free people, to get along with each other, and to work for the betterment, for the improvement of the free nation that we have. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you really take this to heart and apply it to yourselves, apply it to your neighbors, apply it across cultures, because we have a great country here in America. It's not perfect, but we're a free people. So let's embrace each other. Let's love each other. Thanks.